terrified the Galactic Council. Humanity's one-word reply to the tribute order, the message arrived on every human communication network simultaneously. Admiral Karen Price stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station, watching the holographic display flicker to life with the seal of the Galactic Council. The alien voice that emerged spoke in perfectly translated English, cold and mechanical. Species designation humanity. You are hereby ordered to provide annual tribute to the Galactic Council. Failure to comply will result in immediate military action. You have 72 hours to respond with your compliance confirmation and tribute manifest. The bridge fell silent. Karen looked at the faces around her. Officers from a dozen different nations, all united under Earth's unified defense force. They had spent the last 5 years preparing for first contact, hoping for peaceful exchange, scientific cooperation, cultural sharing. Instead, they received a demand for submission. "Get me President Morrison," Karen said quietly. Within minutes, the emergency council convened. World leaders filled the screens around the command center, their faces tight with tension. President Morrison spoke first, his voice steady despite the situation. "We've analyzed the message. The Galactic Council represents 47 star systems. They've been collecting tribute from developing species for over 3,000 years. What kind of tribute are they demanding?" asked Prime Minister Chen from the European Federation. An intelligence officer pulled up the decoded requirements. 20% of our raw materials annually, 10% of our food production, access to our genetic databases, and mandatory military conscription, 1 million humans per year to serve in their peacekeeping forces. The room erupted. Voices overlapped, some calling for negotiation, others for defiance. Karen watched them argue, feeling the weight of humanity's first interstellar decision pressing down on all of them. "They have superior numbers," cautioned General Martinez. "Our deep space probes detected their fleet movements. 300 warships in holding positions just outside our solar system. We have 60 ships, barely tested in real combat. So we just surrender?" challenged Admiral Okonkwo from the African Union fleet. "Give up our freedom before we even begin to explore the stars?" President Morrison raised his hand for silence. "We need to understand what we're facing." "Karen, what's your assessment?" Karen studied the tactical display, years of military experience processing the information. They're positioned defensively, not offensively. They're waiting for compliance, not preparing for invasion. This is a routine operation for them. They expect us to fall in line like every other species they've encountered. "What does that tell us?" Morrison asked. "It tells us they've never faced real resistance. Every species they've subjugated accepted the terms. They have superior technology, yes, but they're complacent. They don't expect to fight." The Chinese premier spoke up. "Even if we could fight, should we? We're talking about the survival of our species. Perhaps we negotiate better terms, reduce the tribute, buy ourselves time to build our strength." Karen felt something stirring in her chest, something she recognized from her days commanding troops in ground conflicts. It was the same feeling that came before every impossible decision, every moment when retreat seemed logical, but surrender felt wrong. "We could negotiate," she said slowly. "We could buy time. We could survive by bending our knees." She paused, meeting Morrison's eyes through the screen. "But what message does that send? To them, to ourselves, to every generation that comes after? That humanity's first act on the galactic stage was submission?" Morrison nodded slowly. "Draft our response, Admiral. Make it clear. Make it unmistakable. We'll send it in 1 hour." The room buzzed with debate, but Karen was already moving. She gathered her communications team, worked with the linguistics experts, consulted with the cultural advisors. They crafted the message carefully, ensuring translation protocols would carry not just the words, but the weight behind them. 60 minutes later, Karen stood before the transmission array. The entire world watched, billions of people holding their breath as humanity prepared to answer the Galactic Council's demand. The transmission began. The same alien voice that delivered the ultimatum would now carry Earth's response back to the council chambers, back to 47 star systems that had never heard defiance from a newly contacted species. Karen spoke the single word that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. One word that contained everything humans had fought for throughout their history. Every revolution, every stand against tyranny, every moment when people chose dignity over survival. "No." The communications officer confirmed transmission. The message streaked through quantum channels toward the council fleet. Karen watched the tactical display, seeing the moment when the message reached its destination. The alien ships, arranged in their patient waiting pattern, suddenly erupted into chaotic movement. "They're breaking formation," reported Lieutenant Hayes at the sensor station. Multiple ship movements, collision warnings between their own vessels. Their communication channels just went from minimal traffic to complete saturation. President Morrison appeared on screen, his expression grim but resolute. "Admiral, we're detecting weapons charging across their fleet. They're preparing for combat operations. All Earth Defense Forces battle stations," Karen ordered. "Launch all available fighters. Activate the lunar defense grid." Mars Colony began evacuation protocols. The bridge transformed into controlled chaos. Officers coordinated with defense stations across 3 planetary bodies and dozens of orbital platforms. Humanity's small fleet, built over 5 years of frantic preparation, moved into defensive positions around Earth. Commander Jake Foster, Karen's tactical officer, pulled up projections on the main display. At current acceleration, their lead elements will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. Full fleet arrival in 8 hours. Status of our forces? All 60 ships responding. We have 300 fighter craft ready for deployment. Orbital defense platforms are online. Ground-based railguns are tracking targets. Jake paused. "Admiral, even with home field advantage, the numbers aren't in our favor." Karen studied the display, watching the red icons representing the Council fleet begin their approach. Each icon representing technologies centuries ahead of Earth's, weapons that could reduce cities to ash, shields that their missiles might not penetrate. "No," she said quietly, then louder. "The numbers have never been in humanity's favor. We've always fought uphill. That's what we do." President Morrison addressed the Combined Military Command. "All forces are authorized to engage under Admiral Price's command. Rules of engagement are weapons free on all hostile targets. Earth Defense Initiative is now active." Karen began issuing orders, her command staff executing with practiced precision. "Deploy the satellite network. I want every piece of space debris we've been tracking for the last 5 years marked and ready. Engineering teams prepare the emergency protocols we discussed." "Admiral, those protocols were theoretical," protested Chief Engineer Lisa Park. "We've never tested them in real conditions. We're testing them now. Humanity doesn't get practice runs." The hours ticked down. The Council fleet advanced with mechanical precision, their formation perfect, their approach textbook. Karen watched them come, recognizing the signs of an organization that had performed this operation countless times before. "They're not even trying to hide their movements," observed Jake. "No feints, no misdirection. They're just coming straight at us." "Why would they?" Karen replied. "In 3,000 years, they've never needed tactics beyond overwhelming force. Every species they've encountered either submitted or died quickly." "Which one are we planning to do?" Karen allowed herself a thin smile. "Neither." The Council fleet entered the outer solar system, passing the orbit of Neptune. Their ships were massive, dwarfing Earth's vessels, their hulls gleaming with advanced alloys that reflected starlight like mirrors. At their center flew the Command Dreadnought, a vessel 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The Galactic Council's supreme commander, a being named Corval, stood in the central command chamber of the Dreadnought. His species, the Vextar, had led the Council's military operations for 8 centuries. He had overseen the subjugation of 14 species, each one choosing survival over annihilation once they saw the fleet. "The humans have responded with violence," reported his tactical officer. "Their primitive vessels are taking defensive positions." Corval's facial tendrils twitched with amusement. "As expected. They all show defiance initially. Once they witness our capabilities, they'll reconsider. Prepare a demonstration strike. Destroy one of their outer orbital stations. Make it visible from their homeworld." The Council fleet adjusted course, weapon systems charging. They selected a mining station in high Earth orbit, home to 300 workers. The Dreadnought's main cannon began its power cycle, energy readings climbing toward firing threshold. On Earth Defense Station, alarms screamed warnings. "They're targeting Platform 7, shouted Hayes. "Charging what looks like a particle beam weapon. Energy signature is off our scale." Karen's mind raced through possibilities, discarding options in milliseconds. "All ships, execute scatter pattern Delta. Fighters screen formation around Platform 7. Engineering now would be an excellent time for those protocols." "Admiral, the fighter screen won't stop that weapon," Jake protested. "I know, but it'll make them choose." The Council's tactical computers registered the human fighter craft moving between the Dreadnought and its target. Small vessels, barely worth targeting individually, but positioned perfectly to take the incoming fire. The automated systems flagged the decision point. Fire through the fighters or wait for them to clear. Corval saw the display and laughed. "They sacrifice their warriors to protect an industrial platform? Fire anyway. Let them learn the price of defiance." The particle beam lanced through space, a column of destructive energy that vaporized 3 human fighters instantly. But in the microsecond it took the beam to cross the distance, something unexpected happened. The human fighters had been trailing something behind them, microscopic particles that formed a dispersal cloud. The particle beam hit the cloud and scattered, its focused energy spreading across dozens of degrees. Platform 7's shields, primitive by Council standards, absorbed the dispersed energy. The station survived. Silence filled the Council's command chamber. Korval stared at the display, his tactical computers struggling to explain what had occurred. "Analysis," he demanded. "The humans deployed a countermeasure. They somehow knew our weapons' operating principle and created a disruption field using basic matter dispersion. It shouldn't have worked. The probability was less than 1%. Then fire again. And again. Eventually we'll overcome their luck." But the Council fleet's advance had slowed, commanders suddenly uncertain. The automated response they expected had become something else, something requiring actual tactical thought. Karen watched the Council's hesitation with satisfaction. They felt it, that moment of doubt. Fire solution on their command ship. Load the special package. "Admiral, we don't have weapons that can reach them at this range," Jake said. "We don't need to reach them. We need them to think we might." Earth's lead destroyer, the Defiance, launched a missile on a ballistic trajectory toward the Dreadnought. The Council's point defense systems tracked it lazily, confidence unshaken, but the missile didn't follow a standard attack profile. It accelerated far beyond what its engine should allow, burning so hot that the casing began to glow. "What are they launching?" demanded Korval. "Analysis shows it's a fusion warhead mounted on an overclocked drive system. The missile is literally destroying itself to gain speed. Expected lifespan is 90 seconds. It won't survive to reach us." Korval watched the missile burn through space, trailing fire like a comet. It died exactly as predicted, the engine finally giving out, the warhead detonating harmlessly in empty space. But something had changed. The Council officers looked at each other, the same thought passing between them. These humans had just weaponized self-destruction, pushed their technology beyond safe limits, accepted the loss of their own equipment to make a point. "They're insane," whispered the tactical officer. Karen smiled at the reaction she saw in the Council's formation, a slight widening of their defensive sphere. "Let's see how insane they think we are." Launch the debris field. Across Earth's orbital space, thousands of small thrusters fired simultaneously. Space junk that had been accumulating for decades, marked and tracked by Earth's space monitoring systems, began moving. Defunct satellites, spent rocket stages, fragments of destroyed stations all began accelerating toward the Council fleet. "Incoming debris field," reported the Council's sensors. "Thousands of objects on intercept courses. It's garbage," Korval said. "Their shields can't stop our weapons, so they throw trash at us. Point defense will handle it." But the debris came in waves, timed perfectly to overwhelm targeting systems. The Council's automated defenses fired continuously, destroying piece after piece. But for every object destroyed, 3 more appeared in its wake. The fleet had to slow their advance, dedicating computing power to tracking and eliminating the obstacles. "This is a delaying tactic," Korval announced. "Continue forward. Weather the debris storm. They can't keep this up forever." He was right. Earth's accumulated space debris, even directed with perfect precision, was a finite resource. But it bought time, precious minutes that Karen used to position her forces. "All ships, prepare for knife fight protocols. Fighters, you know your targets. When they close to engagement range, show them how humans fight when they're cornered." Jake stared at her. "Admiral, those protocols require us to get within knife fight range of their ships. We'll be trading hull to hull." "Exactly. They've spent 3,000 years fighting from comfortable distances, letting their superior weapons do the work. Let's see how they handle it when we take away their advantage." The Council fleet finally cleared the debris field, their pristine hulls now scorched and dented from the impacts. Korval's patience had evaporated. "All ships, maximum acceleration. We end this now. Target their homeworld, show them the consequences of resistance." The massive fleet surged forward, closing the distance to Earth in a wave of overwhelming force. Karen watched them come, her hand steady on the command console. "Wait for it," she whispered. "Wait until they're committed." The Council ships entered high Earth orbit, their weapons trained on population centers, ready to deliver the demonstration that had broken the will of so many species before. Their sensors painted targets across the planet's surface, cities holding billions of humans. "Now," Karen said quietly, every human ship, every fighter, every defense platform activated their engines at maximum burn. But they didn't retreat. They accelerated directly toward the Council fleet, closing the distance at suicidal speeds. "They're ramming us!" someone shouted in the Council command center. The orderly formation dissolved into chaos. Council ships broke formation, trying to evade the incoming vessels. Collision alarms screamed across 40 frequencies. And in that moment of confusion, when the Council's attention focused on the immediate threat, Earth's fighters slipped through the defensive perimeter. Karen's voice carried across every human channel. "All fighters, weapons free. Target their command and control nodes. Make every shot count." The smaller human craft, designed for maneuverability over raw power, wove through the Council's massive ships like wolves among cattle. They targeted communication arrays, sensor clusters, weapon tracking systems, not trying to destroy the ships but to blind and silence them. Corval watched his perfect formation collapse into isolated groups, ships unable to coordinate without their communication networks. The humans were inside his formation, too close for his main weapons to target without hitting his own vessels. "How?" he demanded. "How did they know our vulnerable points?" "Sir, analysis suggests they studied our ships during the approach. Every species we've conquered had decades or centuries of space experience. The humans have barely 5 years. They're fighting like a cornered animal, using instinct instead of doctrine." The battle devolved into dozens of small engagements, human fighters dancing around Council ships, exploiting every gap in their defenses. Earth's destroyers traded fire with cruisers 10 times their size, absorbing horrific damage but staying in the fight through jury-rigged repairs and desperate courage. The Defiance took a direct hit that vaporized its entire forward section. The surviving crew sealed the breach and kept firing, the ship's commander, Captain Lisa Chen, ordering attacks even as her vessel died around her. When the engines finally failed, she ordered the remaining crew to the escape pods, then set the reactor to overload and aimed the dead ship at a Council cruiser. The explosion destroyed both vessels. Karen watched the sacrifice with tears streaming down her face, but her voice remained steady. "Defiance's action gave us an opening in Sector 4. All available units exploited. Push them back from the planet." For 3 hours, the battle raged across Earth's orbital space. The Council's superior technology clashed against humanity's desperate innovation. Ships died on both sides, brave warriors making split-second decisions that determined survival or death. Corval realized with growing horror that his fleet was being pulled apart, forced into scattered engagements where numbers mattered less than determination. "Disengage," he ordered. "Pull back to reform our lines." But retreating while engaged invited disaster. Human forces pursued relentlessly, turning the withdrawal into a fighting retreat. Council ships that tried to break contact found themselves swarmed by fighters, their retreat cut off by Earth's destroyers positioning themselves in escape corridors. "We cannot disengage," his tactical officer reported. "The humans won't let us break contact. They're fighting like they have nothing to lose." "They don't," Carval realized. "They know we'll destroy them if they surrender. So they fight to the last ship, the last pilot, the last breath." "We've never faced an enemy with no hope of survival." President Morrison appeared on Karen's screen, his face showing the strain of watching billions of lives hang in the balance. "Admiral, our casualties are approaching 40%. How much longer can we sustain this?" "As long as it takes," Karen replied. "We're not just fighting for survival, sir. We're fighting to show them that humanity can't be conquered. Every minute we hold them is another minute they doubt themselves." The battle shifted as both sides adapted to each other's tactics. The Council began coordinating in smaller groups, protecting their damaged vessels. Humanity's forces consolidated around the surviving capital ships, using their mass to shield the fighters. Then, something unexpected happened. A transmission came from the Council fleet, but not from Corval's dreadnought. A different commander from one of the Council's member species broadcast on open channels. "Human forces, this is Commander Zalruth of the Cathar Expanse. I request temporary cessation of hostilities." Karen exchanged glances with her command staff. "This could be a trap. Or it could be a crack," Jake suggested. "The Council isn't as unified as they appear." Karen opened the channel. "This is Admiral Karen Price, Earth Defense Forces. State your intentions." "My ships are withdrawing from combat," Zalruth replied. "The Cathar joined the Galactic Council believing it represented civilized cooperation. What I witnessed today was not civilization defending itself. It was tyranny attempting to crush freedom. My people will not participate in this." 6 Council ships broke formation, moving away from Earth toward open space. The remaining Council forces watched them go, confusion spreading through their ranks. Corval's face appeared on the main display, fury evident in every line. "Traitor!" The Council will not forget this. Neither will the Cathar, Zelruth responded. We remember our own first contact with the Council, the tribute we paid, the freedom we lost. Today, watching the humans fight, we remembered what we should have said then. No, the word echoed across the battlefield, carrying weight that transcended species or language. It was the same word Karen had transmitted 6 hours earlier, now coming back from an unexpected source. Corval cut the transmission and addressed his remaining forces. All ships, prepare for sustained assault. We will make an example that echoes across the galaxy. But the certainty had left his voice. His officers heard it, the slight waver that revealed doubt, and, in war, doubt was as deadly as any weapon. Karen seized the moment. Broadcast to all Council ships. Let them hear this. You bring in those chattels into the design, and about this of Battlespace's American, whether you're looking for commercial voiceover, character voice acting, or even taking a chance, you found resistance. You came expecting a quick victory. You found a fight. You came believing your technology made you invincible. You learned that determination matters more than advanced weapons. She paused, letting the words sink in. But here's what you didn't expect. You didn't expect that your own people would question this war. Commander Zelruth's people aren't the only ones having doubts. I can see it in your formation, in your hesitation, in the way you're looking at each other wondering if this fight is worth dying for. We're not your enemies. The Council's system of tribute is your enemy. It turned you from explorers into tax collectors, from defenders into oppressors. You maintain this empire not because it's right, but because no one has challenged it before. Until today. We're one planet, one species. We have 60 ships against your hundreds. By every logical calculation, we should lose. But we haven't lost, and we won't lose, because we're fighting for something worth dying for. What are you fighting for? Silence answered her question. Across the Council fleet, commanders looked at each other, at their damaged ships, at their dead comrades, and asked themselves why they were really here. Corval tried to rally his forces. Do not listen to their words. They seek to divide us. Remember your duty to the Council. But duty rang hollow against the question Karen had posed. 3 more ships broke formation, broadcasting their withdrawal. Then 5 more. Then a dozen. The Council fleet began to fragment, not into enemies but into groups questioning the war's purpose. Some ships maintained aggressive positions, loyal to the Council's command. Others pulled back, unwilling to continue fighting without understanding why. Corval watched his fleet dissolve around him, his absolute certainty crumbling. Stand your ground, he commanded. That's an order. No, came a response from one of his own senior commanders. That word again. The humans taught us its power. No, we will not continue this unjust war. No, we will not conquer a species for refusing slavery. No, we will not be the tyrants our ancestors fought against. The Dreadnought's bridge fell silent. Corval stood alone in his conviction, abandoned by the very forces he commanded. He stared at the earth below, the blue and green planet that had done the impossible. It had won without destroying its enemy. It had won by making its enemy destroy itself. Karen watched the Council fleet's disintegration with exhausted relief. All ships maintain defensive positions but cease offensive operations. Let's see what they do next. What they did next would change the galaxy forever. The Council fleet withdrew to the edge of Earth's solar system, no longer a united force but a collection of ships and species questioning everything they thought they knew. Corval's dreadnought remained, isolated, a symbol of the old order refusing to accept the new reality. President Morrison addressed the planet and the watching Council forces. To all species represented in the Council fleet, Earth extends an offer, not of submission, not of tribute, but of dialogue. We will meet with any who wish to discuss a different future, one based on cooperation rather than domination. To those who wish to continue the old system, we say this: we will defend ourselves as fiercely tomorrow as we did today, and we will inspire others to do the same. The age of easy conquest is over. On the Dreadnought, Corval faced a choice that commanders across history had confronted: accept defeat and adapt, or fight until nothing remained. He looked at his officers, seeing their expectation that he choose wisely. Stand down, he said quietly. All weapons, safe mode. We're done here. The order rippled through his ship, through the fleet, through 47 star systems watching the battle unfold. The Galactic Council's first military defeat in 3,000 years became official. Earth celebrated, mourning their dead while honoring their sacrifice. The casualty lists were long, the damage extensive, but Humanity had survived first contact and maintained its freedom. Karen stood on the observation deck of Earth Defense Station, looking out at the orbital graveyard where so many ships now drifted. She thought about every decision she'd made, every order that sent people to their deaths, every moment when surrender seemed rational. "You did it," Jake said softly beside her. "You beat them." "We didn't beat them," Karen replied. "We made them beat themselves. We showed them something they'd forgotten over 3,000 years of domination. That freedom is worth fighting for. That people pushed to the edge will surprise you. That no empire lasts forever." What happens now? Now we prepare for first contact, the real kind. Half the council species are sending diplomatic requests. They want to talk, to understand how we did it, to discuss alternatives to the tribute system. The other half are angry, humiliated, dangerous. We'll face threats from both sides. Sounds like we traded one problem for another. Karen smiled. "Welcome to the galactic community. It's messy, complicated, and full of species that all think they know best, but it's better than kneeling." Over the following weeks, Earth became the center of galactic attention. Species from across known space sent envoys, some curious, some hostile, all wanting to understand the humans who said no. The Cathar Expanse became humanity's first alien ally, sharing technology and tactical knowledge. Commander Zalruth met with Karen, two warriors who understood the cost of standing up for principles. "My people are preparing to leave the council," Zalruth explained. "Others will follow. You've started something that will reshape the entire galactic order." "That wasn't our goal," Karen said. "We just wanted to be free. That's exactly why it worked. You weren't trying to overthrow the council. You were simply refusing to submit." That simplicity, that clarity of purpose, cut through 3 millennia of political complexity. The council's entire system rested on the assumption that tributary species would accept their place. You removed that assumption. Karen considered the implications. "We're going to make a lot of enemies." "Yes. You're also going to inspire a lot of friends. The galaxy is full of species that accepted the council's terms because they saw no alternative. You provided an alternative." No. The word had become a rallying cry, spreading across the galaxy faster than light speed. On 100 worlds, tributary species heard the story of Earth's stand and began questioning their own subjugation. Some demanded renegotiation of their tribute terms. Others announced their withdrawal from the council entirely. The Galactic Council, faced with the collapse of their 3,000-year-old system, convened an emergency session. The debate raged for weeks, some members demanding military action to restore order, others calling for reform. In the end, pragmatism won. The council announced a restructuring, eliminating mandatory tribute and converting to a voluntary alliance. They claimed it was a natural evolution of their organization, not acknowledging that Earth's resistance had forced their hand. But everyone knew the truth. One planet had changed everything. On Earth, Karen received promotion to Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, charged with preparing humanity for its new role in galactic politics. Her first act was establishing a memorial for those who died in the battle, ensuring their names would be remembered. President Morrison addressed the United Earth government, outlining humanity's path forward. "We entered the galactic community through fire and blood. We learned that the universe is not welcoming to the weak. But we also learned that humanity possesses something precious, the will to stand for our principles no matter the cost. We will build our fleet. We will explore the stars. We will establish alliances and face enemies. But we will do so as free people, never forgetting the price paid for that freedom, never taking for granted the courage of those who said no when everyone expected submission." Years passed. Earth's sphere of influence expanded as more species sought alliance with the upstart humans. The old council fractured into regional alliances, some friendly to Earth, others hostile. Humanity found itself navigating complex galactic politics, making friends and enemies in equal measure. Karen eventually retired, passing command to a new generation of officers who'd learned from her example. She spent her remaining years teaching at the Earth Defense Academy, training young commanders in the principles that had saved humanity. "Why did we win?" a cadet asked during one lecture. "The council had every advantage, better technology, more ships, centuries of experience. By every calculation, we should have lost." Karen smiled at the question she'd answered 1,000 times. "We won because we understood something the council forgot. Technology and numbers matter in war, but they're not everything. Will matters. Purpose matters. When you're fighting for survival, for freedom, for the right to determine your own future, you find strength that can't be calculated or predicted. But most importantly, We won because we refused to accept the premise of their dominance. They expected submission because every other species had submitted. We said no, and that single word shattered their entire worldview. Sometimes the greatest weapon is simply refusing to lose. The cadets absorbed the lesson, preparing to carry forward the legacy of Earth's first contact. They would face different challenges, new enemies, unforeseen crises, but they would face them with the knowledge that humanity had passed its first great test. Decades later, when Karen died peacefully in her sleep, the entire galaxy mourned. Allies sent condolences. Even former enemies acknowledged her role in reshaping galactic civilization. She was buried with full military honors, her coffin draped with the flag of United Earth. At her funeral, President Morrison, now an old man himself, delivered the eulogy. Karen Price never wanted to be a hero. She never sought glory or recognition. She was a soldier who did her duty when the moment demanded it. But her legacy will echo through the ages, reminding everyone who hears the story that freedom is never granted by the powerful. It must be claimed by the brave. He paused, looking at the assembled mourners, humans and aliens standing together. She taught us that one word spoken with conviction can change the galaxy. That word was no. And because she had the courage to say it, we all stand here today as free beings. The memorial stone placed at her grave bore a simple inscription, Admiral Karen Price. She said no. In the decades and centuries that followed, Earth grew into a major galactic power. Humanity's reputation for fierce independence and willingness to fight for principles made them valuable allies and dangerous enemies. The phrase, to say no like a human, entered galactic language, meaning to refuse unjust demands regardless of consequences. The old Galactic Council's tributary system never recovered. Species that had paid tribute for generations demanded renegotiation or withdrew entirely. New alliances formed based on voluntary cooperation rather than coerced submission. The galaxy entered an era of smaller, more democratic federations. Not everyone welcomed the change. Some species prospered under the old system and resented its collapse. Conflicts erupted as the galactic order reorganized itself. But even in war, the lessons of Earth's first contact persisted. No species could assume automatic submission anymore. Every engagement required consideration of whether the enemy might choose to fight rather than surrender. Humanity spread across the stars, establishing colonies, forging alliances, occasionally fighting wars. They remained true to the principles established during first contact: cooperate when possible, fight when necessary, but never submit to tyranny. On Earth, in the plaza where Karen Price had made her famous transmission, a statue stood, showing her at the moment she spoke that single word. Tourists from across the galaxy visited, wanting to see where the old order had begun its fall. One day, centuries after the events, a young Karthar student stood before the statue with his human guide. Did she know? He asked. When she said no, did she understand what it would mean? The guide considered the question. I don't think she thought about changing the galaxy, defending her home, her people, her freedom. Sometimes the most profound changes come from people simply doing what they believe is right, not calculating the historical impact. My people tell stories about that day, the Cathar student said, about Commander Zolrith's decision to withdraw, about how watching humans fight reminded us of what we'd lost. We teach our children that courage is not fearlessness, but acting rightly despite fear. That's a good lesson, the guide agreed. Fear is natural. Submission to fear is a choice. They stood in silence before the statue, two species that had once faced each other in battle, now standing together in peace, united by the memory of a woman who refused to surrender humanity's future. The galaxy continued its endless dance of politics, war, cooperation, and conflict. New crises emerged, new challenges tested every species. But the lesson of Earth's first contact remained relevant across the generations. Sometimes the most powerful response to tyranny is the simplest. Sometimes changing the galaxy starts with a single word. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to accept the world as others insist it must be. Karen Price understood this instinctively. She knew that submission, once accepted, becomes permanent, that freedom delayed is freedom denied, that the moment you kneel, standing back up, becomes exponentially harder. So when the Galactic Council demanded tribute, when they threatened military action, when they expected Earth to join the long list of subjugated species, she gave them the only answer compatible with human dignity: no. That single word rippled across the galaxy, toppling an empire that had stood for 3,000 years, liberating species that had forgotten they could be free, and establishing humanity as a force that would not be conquered. In the end, Earth's first contact taught the galaxy a lesson it had forgotten, that free beings fighting for something they believe in possess a strength that technology cannot match and numbers cannot overcome, that courage and determination can defeat superior force when backed by righteous purpose. The Galactic Council came to Earth expecting easy submission. They found determined resistance. They came to collect tribute. They received a declaration of independence. They came to add another species to their empire. They discovered the species that would end that empire. All because one woman, standing on a space station above Earth, speaking for billions of humans and countless generations yet to come, refused to surrender humanity's future. She looked at the assembled might of 47 star systems, calculated the odds of victory, understood the price of defiance, and said the word that changed everything. No.